Yesterday, thanks to disclosures from Rick Grenell, the acting head of intelligence, we learned a lot more about the corruption that spawned the Russia hoax that consumed 3 years of this country's time. We learned yesterday that 39 separate people in the Obama administration requested to unmask Mike Flynn's identity in NSA intelligence reports. In other words, they asked to spy on him. Did they have the right to do that? Well, a lot of these people were not criminal investigators or intelligence officers. They were political hacks. They were looking for ammunition to hurt a political enemy. Now, that is the most obvious and ominous kind of abuse of power, the kind the media exist to police. The reason we have a free press is so they can push back against powerful people abusing their power. But they didn't. Today, after learning that, they were mad only because these revelations make the powerful look bad.
Obamagate conspiracy theory that President Obama, Vice President Biden, and others were somehow involved in an illegal effort to target Flynn or something like that. It is a conspiracy theory.
These documents don't show any political motivations. It doesn't show us that anybody who shouldn't have had access to this information was getting access to it.
What does it say to you that the president, who's been in office now for more than 3 years, that he's still obsessing over President Obama, calling it Obamagate?
This is absolutely 100% politics, and really in the current environment, given what's going on in the country, I think is really a disgraceful abuse of the declassification system and an unfair disparaging of the intelligence community process.
Been in media 29 years, never seen anything like this. By the way, as we said last night, and this is completely sincere, if the Trump administration did something like that to its political enemies, we would never defend that. That's a solemn promise. That is totally wrong. By the way, what's the next guy, whoever that person is, to occupy the Oval Office? How is that person going to govern the country when a group of supremely powerful, unelected officials who cannot be fired have more power than he does? How can you govern a country like that? You can't. And the press should be pushing back against it. That's the first thing they should do, regardless of partisan interests. But no, you hear the last person there? That was Carrie Cordero, a CNN legal analyst, telling you it wasn't abusive at all. Not at all. You're crazy if you think it was, for the Italian ambassador or President Obama's chief of staff or the highly political UN ambassador, Samantha Power, to spy on the incoming national security advisor in the final weeks of the administration and then send out leaks to the press falsely suggesting he broke the law by trying to prepare for his job. Yeah. Now, the real abuse they're telling you, you just heard it, is that the public now knows about it. The public now knows. You have no right to know. And it's an insult to our intel community that you know. That's the real crime here. This morning, CNN described this whole thing in a chyron, a graphic on the screen, as a, quote, conspiracy theory. Now, just to be clear, regardless of your views on Russia, we know for a fact it is not a partisan talking point. It is established that the Obama administration abused this process. You were not supposed to unmask the name of an American caught up in intel surveillance unless you have a national security reason to do it. They didn't. Then they took that information and they leaked it to the Washington Post, to David Ignatius, a columnist there. That's a felony. We still don't know who did it. Nobody seems to care. We should care. You can't crush people using classified information. And you definitely can't do it for political reasons, which they did. But the press doesn't care at all. They stopped caring about civil liberties a long time ago. Senator Rand Paul, to his credit, actually does care about civil liberties. And we're happy to have Senator Paul on tonight. I don't think I'm imagining this. By the way, we have not covered Mike Flynn very often on this show. I've never thought it was an especially interesting story. Now I do, because this is shocking. I mean, what's your take on this?
Well, here's the thing, Tucker. I think it's worse than you can even imagine. And your viewers need to know that basically this is an end run on the Constitution. They had no warrant to listen to Flynn's conversation. So what they do is they go and they record the conversation of a foreigner, of an ambassador from Russia, but they don't really have to get a warrant. They either get a foreign surveillance warrant, which doesn't really require Fourth Amendment, and I actually don't care if they do or don't on the ambassador, but they're really doing it to come around and get the American.
Yes.
So it could be all along. It could be all along that Flynn was the target, and they decided to listen to as many people as possible to actually try to get Flynn. But Flynn being the target would be illegal. And when they say, well, there's no proof that this was done for political purposes, what were the national security purposes? And in fact, one of the reforms we should do to this is we should not let them unmask anybody without writing down and affirming what was the national security interest that caused you to unmask this person. I think absolutely it was politically motivated, and they should have to prove to us what was the national security interest. So you have the national security advisor, the new one, coming in, talking to the ambassador about policy. There's no national security interest in that, only political shenanigans because they were trying to gin up this whole conspiracy with Russia thing that really wasn't going anywhere.
There's no guarantee Republicans will control either chamber of Congress. Of Congress. We don't know. Is the Republican-led Senate going to do anything to get to the bottom of this, do you think, before November?
Well, you know, we had a chance today, and we had a chance to reform FISA, and I had an amendment that said FISA should never be used on Americans, and it should be never used on a political campaign because the FISA court doesn't obey the Fourth Amendment. They only have this standard that is lower than the Constitution that says all you got to do is prove some relationship to a foreign government. So they said, oh, Carter Page is related, so we can do whatever we want. But that's not the Constitution. So Americans should always have the Constitution to protect them. But what they did in this case is they voted down my amendment because the deep state always wins. The deep state always wins because most Republicans actually support the deep state as well as the Democrats.
And I know you're never going to criticize your fellow Kentucky senator, but Mitch McConnell, who leads the Senate, should be ashamed. Our viewers should know that he's the reason a lot of things haven't happened. No one says that. It's true. You know it's true. I'm not going to ask you to verify it. Anyway, thank you for coming on, and I appreciate that.
Thanks, Tucker.